Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Latest in Travel podcast by Guestcentric. I'm really excited to have with us and to welcome to today's session Sebastien Leitner, who is the VP of Partnerships at Cloudbeds. Sebastian's team collaborates with solution providers, guest engagement tools, distribution partners, and other new technologies, all focused on enhancing the guest experience. First of all, thank you, Sebastien, for joining us. It's really great to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here today.
Great. And I'm excited to dig into some of the topics that we have for today in our discussion. But first, just for anyone who might be listening or tuning in who might not know, do you mind to just give like a little background on who you are, what you do, what you've been up to? It's always interesting as well to understand like how people got into our industry as well, because a lot of times it's maybe not planned or something like that. So yeah, the floor is yours.
I think I decided at the age of 10 that I wanted to become a hotelier. I don't know, I was passing some old castles and chateaus in France. I'm originally from France, and decided that I would want to buy one of those chateaus and turn it into a hotel. A lot has changed since then, and clearly I'm not in a chateau. But I choose a career in hospitality. That was sort of my first career. I worked in various hotels in Germany and France, in London, and at some point felt that I'm also a complete tech nerd. So there's sometimes the opportunity to continue your career in hospitality and become a general manager, and go places and visit different countries and build amazing properties. I did an opening in 2001 in Berlin. At some point I got a call from Expedia and I went into more a tech role. Ran connectivity for Expedia for some time. And naturally moved to eventually join Cloudbeds, which I did about 7 years ago when we were still somewhat smaller than we are today, but was really impressed by the passion and commitment of both Richard and Adam, who reached out to me at the time and said, hey, we want to build something really, really cool and really, really new. And that is to empower hoteliers to have access to great technology and build a fantastic PMS product. So 7 years later, I'm still around. I've lost a little bit of hair, and it's turned color. But it's been a fun 7 years. And the company has grown tremendously. My role at Cloudbeds is, I run partnerships, industry relations, and events. So I wear a few hats, if you will. I ultimately see myself as an explorer of opportunities. With partners, my big objective is to build something that creates value for everyone involved, including and most importantly, I would say, for the hoteliers. But my team also manages events, and we do some amazing events at Cloudbeds. I'm getting ready for ski season, which is very, very important. And I love cooking. So tonight is Halloween, I'll probably be hosting a few families and throw out that barbecue tonight. So I'm looking forward to that.
And is there going to be tricks or treats?
That's a really good question. I mean, look, I have a Pirate and a Top Gun fighter jet as boys that are going out and hopefully coming back with full bags. I need to make sure I confiscate and throttle their consumption of sweets for the next month. But so that's what's keeping me busy.
Yeah, because then we have Christmas around the corner where there's
exactly.
But that's really cool. Yeah, and definitely sounds like you had a very a varied and exciting journey through starting first on like more of the operational side and then kind of getting into tech. How do you think sort of your more operational background has like informed or I guess influenced your vision to and your passion for creating these solutions and identifying, I guess, like gaps in the market or needs from the hotels to you know, that these solutions can help them solve?
Yeah, I mean, look, hospitality is, from an operational perspective, fairly repetitive, if you will, right? It's sometimes, you know, frustrating how repetitive it can be, right? But we have 200, 300, 100 rooms. They need to be occupied. There's an arrival and there's a departure, right? And from an operations perspective, and that was my career for a long time in rooms division, you know, it is around optimizing and, you know, making that experience as smooth as possible while permitting guests to experience something that is unique potentially and adjusting to their very likes. So doing something that is extremely repetitive at scale while allowing customization just screams for technology.
Yeah.
Right. That's sort of what are the tools, what are the solutions that help me do that extremely well. And I had the chance to work most of my career in luxury hospitality, right? It was always a 5-star, which are extremely passionate about loyalty, guest preferences, you know, making sure that we know the preferences of our most important guests and cater to them at all times. And this is, you know, where the reliance on technology has become more and more important. Having said that, you know, 100 years ago, they knew their customers just as well in hospitality. They knew what preferences they had. They knew what pillows they wanted, et cetera, and they used a lot of offline processes for that. Nowadays, we have this in top of our palms. We have it on our phones. We have it in big CRM databases. But the principles of creating a custom guest experiences are not new. Technology just maybe enables it at scale.
Yeah. And would you say, like, I think with the fact that technology has evolved with that, you know, the consumer behaviors and stuff also have evolved significantly as well. You know, we have information, things are a lot easier to do, things can be done a lot faster in terms of like, for example, visiting a hotel website or something. If it's a bit slow, it's like, okay, I'm gonna leave because it's not, you know, fast enough. So I don't know, when you say the principles are the same, but then there's like the need for technology to kind of empower the hotels to meet these demands and optimize the guest experience. It's kind of like sorry, I'm not sure where I'm going with this question. I had a very like specific kind of it was in my head, but like I guess so with the demands and with technology making things, you know, the demands, I guess, a bit more complex and stuff. It's like, would those principles still be sufficient, or, you know, there needs to be more of automation or something behind that to kind of evolve along with the technology and the consumer behavior that has evolved along with technology? I'm not sure if that made sense the way I've articulated this.
The way, I mean, look, the way we interact as a consumer with service providers is very different. You brought up some really important aspects of it, which is our attention span, for instance, is much shorter these days, right? Our motivation or our, I guess, need to communicate our preferences and thereby, you know, communicating, raising certain expectations are much greater these days than they were probably 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? And when things work, great. fantastic. Everyone is happy, right? To your point, if you're searching for a hotel, you find the property's website, which is fantastic. Most of our consumers today, and this is sort of the learning that I've had in the last 2 years specifically, they can find the property's direct website. That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
It's like 10 years ago, most of the guests found Expedia first, or found Booking.com first, or found, but with Google Free Booking Link, with Google My Business, with a lot of changes that have happened very recently during COVID, a lot of consumers can find the website of our customers, of Cloudbeds customers, of guest-centric customers, and access that first. Right? Now the question becomes, how quick does the page load? Now the question becomes, does the website answer the question that the guests have? And can they actually fulfill the reservation, the FAQ, whatever reason there was to access that website quickly? And when that happens, we win. We all win. When that doesn't happen, it's an opportunity for us to discover, why is this not happening, and what can we do to solve it. But the expectation from a consumer perspective to answer the question that I have, or transmit the preference, is much greater these days. Right? Our attention span is shorter, and I love arriving at a property and getting a text message. Say, welcome. If you need anything, let us know. Right? Great. Now that invites me to communicate with that medium, with that platform, with that tool. Right? My expectation is high, meaning when I submit an inquiry, hey, I'm missing my iron, or I'm missing something, or I need something, that's my expectation is that I will be responded to quickly, right? So from a hotelier's perspective, we need to make sure that we can service these inquiries quickly as well.
Yeah. And what would you say would be, because I think sort of looking sometimes, I guess, like even at more like independent hotels or like smaller properties and things like that, sometimes the argument is like, oh, maybe, the resources are limited or things like that. And maybe it's not as, I don't know, easy to respond to these different guest demands or these different customer segments, different, especially like maybe with different attributes, and like room attributes and things like that, and all these different like components that I guess add like layers of complexity to meeting the guest demands and delivering them those experiences that they want. And increasingly, expecting even sometimes before, it's voiced necessarily. So I don't know, what in your opinion would be like a simplified way or like strategies that a hotel could take to, kind of prioritize and be like, okay, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to, like, we know who we're talking to in this way, and this is how we want to kind of meet their demands.
Yeah, and you bring up a really great point, right? Not every hotel is a 5-star luxury hotel, right? And as business owners, as hoteliers, as operators of a lodging businesses, we need to decide what experiences do we want to create for our guests, and what are the resources that I'm putting against those. There's nothing wrong with a fantastically modern 3-star hotel, right? That has, if you will, and this is sort of a harsh way of putting it, limited services. What does that even mean? It doesn't have limited services. It has appropriate services, right? It may not have a pool. It may not have a gym. It may not have a full-blown restaurant and a spa, etc. But it has a lot of other things that are great. And so the question becomes, what is the experience I want to create for my guests and consumers, and what is the ability that I have and I want to create to customize the experience, if that is even the case. I love upsell tools and room service menus and pillow menus, right? that all raises expectations. And if I don't have, to your point, the resources or the infrastructure to actually support it, don't offer it, right? And that's okay. I think that's perfectly fine. Now, technology can help you if you decide to actually, make those things or additional services part of your experience. Technology can absolutely help you scale this, automate a lot of the delivery of it. And if you as a host or hotelier are interested in discovering these services and potentially offering them to your guests, technology can help you deliver those, absolutely. But make sure it's true to your brand and make sure it is something that you really want to deliver to your guests.
Yeah. You mentioned in the last 2 points, when you mentioned to your point about brand and if it's helping the guest experience, are there any other sort of suggestions that you could make in terms of, like, because I think nowadays, the amount of technology solutions and providers and, new technologies that are coming out, there's a lot of maybe a bit of noise sometimes. It might be hard to kind of distill, like, okay, what is actually the right fit to help my business and my specific business needs. Apart from sort of asking those questions of, like, does it help my brand? Does it help my guests? Are there any other sort of ways or like a roadmap that like hotels should sort of follow in a sense to evaluate what tools are actually a good fit for their business?
And I would add to that, and I think you brought up a great point, how are they all working together with each other, right? How does it operate end to end? When we talk at Cloudbeds, we often talk about workflows, right? And what I like to do when I demo our product is I start with a booking engine reservation, right? I show a customer or a potential customer, here, make a reservation, see how easy it is, right? And once you've checked out, let me send you a text message to actually check in, right? And walk through that experience and see here on your phone now is your your key as well, whether it's a key code or whether it's a what's a good wallet RFID key that can be saved to your phone that works even when the phone is switched off or when the battery is empty, etc., etc. And check out, right? And create that experience that when you look at innovative technology and solutions, these are all great, but make sure that they work in unison. Make sure that they create a frictionless experience that includes the entire journey, right? Because otherwise, you have one piece of the journey that is automated, or that it is seamless, or that is fast, or that it is, it's great. But the journey starts way before the guest arrives at the property, right? So what is that experience end to end? And do all the pieces work in unison and create a extremely frictionless experience, right? And when that happens, we all succeed.
Yeah. And sort of a similar question, but like on kind of a different, well, still sort of on the topic of reaching guests, but I guess in terms of looking sort of to online distribution now, what would be, because you've kind of written about this before as well, in terms of leveraging channels, but then also optimizing your direct business. What would be some recommendations on your side on how hotels should evaluate what channels to work with, which ones make sense, for their business, but then also have like a balanced distribution where it's like, okay, you're using these channels, but you're not over dependent. You're leveraging it for visibility to reach more audiences and so on, but it's not too much. There's still that direct optimization.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talk about sort of the big 5 or big 6 channels all day and all, and they start with B for booking or A for Agoda. Sorry, I should have used an A letter, right? And probably N to, I have a bad example for Z, but I'm sure there is one. There are a handful of channels that control a big portion of, I would say, travel demand. There's some interesting trends right now happening out of Southeast Asia. Trip.com is investing heavily in building out their brand, and we see them growing quite significantly, not only in Southeast Asia, but also in Europe and North America. So I guess I'm using this as an example that there are emerging channels, even on the OTA side, that hoteliers should pay attention to, because there may be an opportunity for you to differentiate yourself, because not every hotel is yet in those particular channels, but there are growing channels that are gaining market share away from Booking.com and Expedia that have traditionally, owned and controlled, I would say, the OTA segment, if you will. So there's emerging channels, and my recommendation is watch for your specific region and for your specific destination. What are those emerging channels? Make sure you participate in them early so you can capture that increase that these channels are seeing into your market. One surprise that I had in the last 3, 4, 5 years is the, I guess, growth of B2B distribution channels, right? Or whether that's Expedia relying heavily on B2B growth, or whether that is a revival, if you will say, of the traditional wholesale channels, right? Like for a long time, I think wholesale was pronounced not dead, but something that is, disrupted and again maybe displaced by OTAs. We've seen a significant revival of those channels across our portfolio of properties, and they do something extremely well, which is move money, right? And I think as hoteliers, we can't underestimate the value of a guest paying in their local currency, and hoteliers getting paid in their destination currency, and moving that money around in a secure way. And a lot of B2B channels have weaponized that, or not weaponized that. That sounds like a quite aggressive term. I don't mean that as being very aggressive. I mean this as being something that adds value in the travel exchange. So emerging channels, B2B, and funnily, that's sort of my third trend. Corporate travel is back, right? Like let's make sure we do not lose sight. We have been blessed by 2 years of very, very strong leisure demand.
Yeah.
Fantastic rates, fantastic weekend occupancy, fantastic, leisure demand in general. That is expected to go down. Be in the corporate channels that you've probably neglected for the last 2 years, and make sure that you're there.
Yeah. And for hotels, I guess, that have kind of, because I guess, to your point of, leisure making like this booming comeback after the pandemic, and then, even sort of more traditionally, I guess, properties, even I know certainly with some of our clients and stuff like that, there was kind of, this pivoting of like, okay, let's kind of start getting on the leisure side of things. But now, I guess, what would be your advice in terms of like, pivoting back to that growing demand of like the more corporate travel, or even like the pleasure segment where it's like, mixing, business with pleasure and so on? Like, how can hotels like meet that?
Look, it starts with the offer, it starts with the package, it starts with some very corporate specific attributes, right? Who probably value flexibility above anything else, right? And yeah, I mean, when we travel on business, our plans unfortunately change regularly, right? And leisure, we're more specific. These are vacations. These are these are trips that are planned way in advance. So flexibility is a big component to that. But I would also say, be in the channels, be present in the channels that cater to a corporate traveler. And while the traditional travel agents have been quite, prominent and continue to be extremely important. There's also a whole slew of new players that cater to corporate travel that you as a hotelier need to be present in.
Yeah. And sort of going back to, I guess, the online distribution piece in general, are there like other, I guess, strategies that you would recommend in terms of, I don't know, the way the distribution is, I mean, the way the inventory is distributed, the way the rates are, in terms of incentivizing more on the direct channel, like adding more things to like the direct offers? Is there anything you would say on that front that hotels can do to balance that out?
Let me share a story. Like, if anything has surprised me recently, is organic search results, right? And it is sort of a channel that no hotelier should leave unattended, if you will, right? We were fortunate at Cloudbeds to be one of the launch partners of Google Free Booking Link, which happened in the middle of the pandemic, and we did not know whether it was going to be successful or would drive any relevant traffic. And I'm sure you guys are participating this as at Guestcentric as well. But it is something that has seen a significant success for our hoteliers, right? And it basically goes to show that it's not only about digital marketing and spending for traffic. It is about making sure that you as a property are listed, right? Choose a technology partner that lists you in real time in search channels, right? And there's both paid search and there's organic search, and most search engines now have both, right? And this is the big surprise for me. And when we look at the data of our hotel's performance, there is a lot of organic business that is hitting our customers. So for every paid, there's probably a non-paid booking that is making it to our properties. That's a great return of investment, right? Because it helps each other, right? It is an engine that is very conversion oriented. So for every converted reservation, whether it's paid or non-paid, it helps each other, if you will. And what that goes to show is your listing accuracy, your listing quality, your reviews in these search channels have become so important, because they feed into things like maps, they feed into things like mobile application, they feed into things that are omnipresent and that are on every single device that we walk around with. So for me, that's sort of the surprise, I would say, in the last 2 years, that we mustn't underestimate organic search, and we need to be present, and we need to be synchronizing that information in real time.
Yeah. And with some of the updates and things that Google has made like this year, and also, there was the Digital Markets Act, but something different also in terms of their like quality. I think it was the helpful content update and stuff, and the different ways that they're changing like the algorithms and things like that. Is there certain points that like hotels should perhaps consider in terms of adapting also their strategies as well to ensure that they have, they maintain those good organic results, obviously balanced with the paid as well, but like, that they keep being visible and they keep, being, present on and relevant on these on the search engine.
You're alluding to a lot of changes that are happening in the space right now. I mean, this is our observation as well. There's never a dull moment in digital marketing, and there's never a dull moment in search. And it's certainly an exciting time. My recommendation to hoteliers around the world: search yourself repeatedly every other day, every week, etc., because things are changing, and make sure that your data and your property is still represented the way that you want to. There's a lot of tools and services available to you to make sure that that's current. But just like the OTAs are working sometimes against you as hoteliers by trying to be a step ahead, in that, we now have tools and services that allow you to compete. And I think, if regulation is doing its part in to a certain extent leveraging or what is the right expression, leveling the playing field, right? It's on us or hoteliers as a whole to make sure that we are there and we're present at all times.
Yeah. And sort of moving a little bit now to other channels, I guess, like that, with the rise of more like Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming up as well, more of these generations traveling and using increasingly, channels like TikTok and Instagram.
I'm going to start talking about TikTok. I was worried about that. Okay. Never mind. I always look at my kids for inspiration. It's like, how are you going to do this tomorrow?
I will confess, I'm not a fan of TikTok personally. I'm not on the platform.
Are you on the gram? I mean, what's the expression? I have a hard time with that.
I am on the gram, I will say, but I think, I don't know, TikTok, I haven't made that leap yet. I think also because I don't know, even the way that Instagram started, it was I'm a little bit of I like art and photography and things like that. So the foundations of that app, it was kind of more this kind of content, like let's upload a bunch of pretty pictures and stuff. And that was like inspirational. But now, it's just inundated with ads, and there's, it's become almost like TikTok with the reels and the shorts and the, that kind of thing. So I'm still on it, but, it's just because I didn't shut it down. So
I love this whole new segment because I do think it is very, very influential for the next generation of travelers. It's huge, right? I've seen a lot of really great things in that space that inspired me. I'll give you a couple of examples. There are influencers posting trips.
Yeah.
Where they're showcasing where they're staying, how they're getting there, what they're visiting, etc. And you, as a viewer of that content, can click on checkout and buy that trip.
Yeah.
Social is becoming a transactional platform, right? And to your point, the lines of ads versus content are blurring, right? They are blurring, right? And it is ultimately content that is supposed to be inspirational and ultimately will become transactional in its nature. We're seeing some tests being done with different partners where they're customizing ads, right, that are running on social media platforms to the actual consumer profile, right, that are using content from advertisers, from hotel groups, from boutique hotels, and customizing that content to the actual user that is looking at the mobile screen, right, using AI technology. There's some really interesting stuff. Some of this will stick. Some of this will lead to a huge game-changing conversion. Some of this will just be wasted energy. Sorry, that sounds terrible. From a data center that is trying to do this. But we're watching it very careful. And our most active properties are seeing significant demand coming from the Instagrams and from the social platform. Facebook is doing a fantastic job. It's a big channel for our properties. I'm trying to keep up. I'm really trying to keep up. I may not be the consumer, but I'm certainly curious enough to understand what's happening. And to all the hoteliers out there, I hope you're looking at your own listings. I hope you're searching for your own name and for your in the grams or the Instagrams of this world, and see what content is being created on your property. Right? Chances are there's already content out there.
And probably also a matter of finding the channels that work, or similar with the other, what we spoke about previously, about finding channels and things that work best for your business. I know certainly, like with some companies, it's like maybe they'll because there's so many, I mean, you have X, there's, Facebook, TikTok, all of that, and sort of juggling all of that, and also different behaviors on those things, posting, for instance, on X, it's like, let's post to stay relevant. You have to post like multiple times a day, and maybe that's not, doesn't make sense for someone. And then, whereas with another channel, it's less, so I guess finding that balance is, would you have any recommendations on that in terms of evaluating?
I do. I think, as a hospitality business, the way I think we need to look at social channels, and this is maybe somewhat controversial, but it's how I help myself define it. For me, an influencer is very similar to a travel agent 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? They have an audience of like-minded people. It's their social network that they're making a recommendation to. And we see this a lot. We do a lot with, we have a lot of properties that are yoga camps or yoga retreats. We have a lot of properties that are surf retreats or properties right on the beach, right? And they work a lot with influencers, if you will. And they look at them as ultimately travel agents, right? The content that is being posted in that audience is almost like the recommendation of a travel agent to a customer and said, hey, I was there last week. It's a fantastic beach. It has a fantastic wave. And the food is awesome. And it makes it like a personal recommendation. And it's not different from, your visit to a travel agency 20, 30 years ago, potentially.
Yeah.
It's just on a phone instead of in person, maybe.
Yeah.
Some call it progress, some call it, going back, but that's fine. Roll with it.
And reaches a wider audience as well at the same
time. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out, and also, increasingly the industry getting on the social commerce side of these channels will be interesting to see. And sort of on that note, I guess, like looking to the future, and this is kind of like one of the fun questions I like to ask everybody. But what sort of predictions do you have for our industry within the next few years? What would you say are your top, expectations that might be surprising, might not be surprising for our listeners, and why?
Oh, so many. I don't know where to start. Let's start with the vacation rental hotel battle, right? Like in that sort of, we came out of COVID and all the hotel guests were going to Airbnbs because, that was safer and that was potentially more interesting. What I find super interesting, and I've been traveling the last 12 months, like almost crazy, is hotels have become a lot more interesting from a product perspective. And I think I see this continuing to become more quirky. They've become more, differentiated. They've become, I think, and I'm sorry to say that, they've taken a lot of what vacation rentals have done extremely well in creating unique accommodations, and apply that to their hotels. And I applaud that. I think that's super exciting. I think that's fantastic. And I do think it will help hoteliers stay exciting and relevant in the years ahead, because I do think that there's a certain tiredness with vacation rentals. We see some of the data showing us that channels like Airbnb are slowing down in volume, if you will.
Would you say that's due to kind of, sorry to interrupt, but I just wonder if it might be due to like the costings as well, because I don't know if it's just my perception, but it seems also like in terms of cost, like you think of Airbnb as like the more cost-effective option, but then it's like now in some cases sometimes even more expensive than an independent hotel or something like that, or certain properties. So I'm not sure if, would you say that maybe has a factor, is a factor in this, or not? not so much?
I think there's a few things potentially driving it, right? Regulation could be also a factor, right? There's less supply growth in that area and leading to, of course, less volume. Some destinations have restricted what is considered vacation rental to be actually available for short-term rentals, and have turned short-term rentals into, lodgings or housing again, right? It has converted back into long-term rentals. But I think that there's a few factors. It is true what you're referring to, that, a few years ago, Airbnbs were more attractive from a pricing perspective, right? Or vacation rentals were more attractive. But that has changed. I think from a consumer perspective, sometimes there's frustration with, hey, there's extra fees to pay. The total cost is maybe, especially for 2-night, 3-night stays, are greater than, staying in a hotel, etc. But there's also a convenience aspect of it, right? Like, and hotels have done a great job catching up to, delivering, as I said, unique experiences and being, more trend-setting again than they used to. So one top prediction is going to be that I do think that the success of, I would say, hotels catering to travelers that are looking for unique accommodations, that will continue to be. And even the big brands have launched, or big hotel companies have launched, very unique brands within their portfolio and have expanded their investment into creating unique accommodations. I think that's one prediction that I would say will continue to happen. I said I had a few trends. What else? I just came back from a trip, and I do think that sort of that technology aspect of things, whether it's contactless or chat or the ability to check in and check out with your phone, that's becoming an expectation, right? I don't think it's a nice to have. I think it's a must have these days. And it'll become, to a certain extent, a commodity, in my opinion. But it's one that has to work, because if it doesn't, the frustration is great, and we're probably not staffed appropriately to manage it any other way at this point.
Yeah. And and apart from that, was there anything? It was a contactless. Were there any other expectations or trends that you have?
Look, I mean, in general, I do think that we are approaching a period of time where travel will, to a certain extent, slow down, right? We had some amazing 2 years, fantastic. Do I expect 2025 to continue to grow? No.
Yeah.
Right? Like I do expect it to be, slowing down in certain geographies and in certain destinations. And that's probably a good thing, because we've been running on 80-90% occupancy, right? And planes at an all-time high or full. And over tourism in a lot of destination is an issue, right? And we have to, I guess, allow for infrastructure to catch up. And many airports we go visit are under construction or are, upgrading things. So I do think that we are approaching a period of decline from a travel demand perspective. What excites me around that is that permits us to have time to innovate and change and upgrade and create differentiation. So it may sound counterintuitive, but I do expect that in that period of business slowing down, that we will see innovative hoteliers build amazing experiences to differentiate themselves. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And I have to say, from a purely selfish point of view, I like prior to the pandemic, I was quite an avid traveler. Like I like to do these big trips and stuff, like to, far-flung destinations. But I have to say, like since COVID, the sheer hassle of getting on planes and, even, okay, now it's a lot better than it was like right after COVID. But, even with the disruptions and like, I think the one big trip I did was to South Africa in 2022, just afterwards. And there were like major disruptions like there and back. And I was just like, I'd be quite happy not to do this for a while. Like, I don't know, my country where I live is great. I'm not in a hurry to leave. But yeah, if there was like that kind of slowing down of these kind of things, in 2025 and beyond, maybe that'll be my time to make the big trips again.
Well, I think there's two factors that play into that, right? One is we've become accustomed to virtual work and to virtual communication. You and I talking right now over camera, right? We're not doing this in person, right?
Yeah.
So, and for a lot of businesses, that is a big portion of how business is done nowadays, right? It's so that corporate trip that happened 10 times a year will probably happen only twice or 3 times. And that's okay, right? Because the other 7 touch points are done via video conference, right? So I don't think that corporate travel will ever return to that same sort of former glory. Conferences and exhibits and big convention have become extremely expensive. So I do think that those will also sort of decline. I was at a conference in Portugal not too long ago, in Lisbon, and I was shocked by hotel prices and and good, because the city was very, very busy, right? But I do think that long term it will limit how many people can actually attend conferences and go places, because we have limited resources and budgets available around that. So corporate travel, I don't think will ever come back to its sort of original glory, but there will always be corporate travel. On the leisure side of things, I think a lot of people have blown through their savings or their discretionary funds, to your point. Youth had a great point, which is leisure travel may not be as enjoyable as it once was, right? Because it is, I think, what did you call it? A hassle, right?
It is a bit of a hassle, yeah. It takes a lot of, well, I mean, that last trip, which was more than 2 years ago now, there was a lot of, thankfully I had some good humored passengers next to me. So, we made the best of a pretty bad situation. But yeah, I was kind of like, even the standards, you're paying a lot more now for flights prices and everything's gone up. But then the level of, I don't know, the experience overall just didn't seem as it was before. So it's kind of like, okay, well, why pay more for this, hassle? So that was kind of my position at the time. But yeah, at the same time, also need to, sometimes rise above these things, just be a bit.
I connected yesterday in Chicago airport. I had 15 minutes to connect, and I had to leave from one plane from one area to the airport to the opposite side. I would have run across in 15 minutes. I couldn't run because there were too many people in the corridors, right? So did I make it? Yes. Was it a pleasant experience? You could argue, but I walked, right? But I to your point, right? It's not something that you say, "Oh, I'm so thankful for traveling around Chicago airport." Sorry, I'm sorry, Chicago. I insult you, but I guess that's the norm, right?
Yeah, and I think to be optimistic, or to have like to see the glass half full in all of this is the stories you have to tell afterwards. They might not be so amusing at the time, but for me, certainly, some of these experiences, when I reflect on them afterwards, they make good, I guess, dinner table conversation.
Yeah, and I would also say, like, look, the reason why we travel hasn't changed, and I still enjoy it like crazy. And why? Because of the
Yeah.
people I meet, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the businesses you meet, the friends you meet, the friends you make on the way. Uh, I would not want to ever stop, right? Now, do we travel maybe a bit less? Probably, but that's not a bad thing considering that, our footprint is what it is, and we should all make an effort to reduce it.
Yeah. Sort of, I guess, looking a little bit more, just also to make sure that we cover all the ground
Sure.
in our time here. Just sort of looking at like the different technologies, and like obviously a big talking point at the moment is AI and how it continues impacting the industry overall, but then also for hotels specifically. And kind of looking to the future, like in terms, like what would you say are some like specific areas within hotel operations that you see AI as having like the strongest impact going forward, and why?
I thought you'd never ask. Finally, we could talk about AI. No, but in all seriousness, look, I'm super excited about this topic because Cloudbeds just a week ago announced their Cloudbeds Intelligence, which is sort of our play of leveraging information and data into actionable insights and converting those. And I do think this is sort of where AI's future is. AI has a lot of futures in a way. But it has recently permitted us to do a lot more smart things. Right? There's sort of an awakening. At Cloudbeds, we've used machine learning since day one. Let's be honest, right? We had a machine learning algorithm that prioritized AI updates when we initially had a channel manager, right? We have pricing recommendation in our pie, right? Now, what I love about our newest development is around a constantly evolving algorithm to predict the hotelier's performance in a future date, right? And providing that informational contextual in the places where hotels make their decision, whether it's for housekeeping, whether it's for staffing, whether it's for promotional activities, whether it's for, running a campaign or running a special offer. For me, this information contextually needs to be accessible in every single area of your business application. Yeah. And when we do that, we allow our customers, our hoteliers, our partners to make better business decisions. And that's what gets me excited, right? We used to have, I guess, jobs in our job description, whether it's a revenue manager, whether it's a person working in marketing or somebody working in customer loyalty, to analyze the data.
Yeah.
Right? Then, based on that analysis, make 3 or 4 decisions and then implement these decisions. And we probably spend a whole day on that.
Yeah. And a lot of times historical data as well, which maybe, yeah.
By the time you looked at it, it was already outdated. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Now let's fast forward to today. Changes are happening faster than we can comprehend, right? There's a social media post of Taylor Swift saying, "Hey, I'm coming to Toronto," right? And suddenly everything breaks loose. But it was 2 minutes ago that this happened. Is it enough that we look at this report tomorrow? Probably not. So I think there is a timeliness aspect to it. There is an aspect that we have access to much more data today than we ever used to have, right? Because our world has become a little bit more complicated and we have more channels and more data points than ever before. Leveraging AI, a self-learning algorithm, a tool that allows us to comprehend what is happening and anticipate what is happening, is an expectation that we should have to any business application. in 2024 and beyond. So this is why I'm super excited about this, and I could talk about it all day. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, you covered sort of different areas, I guess, where it can add value to the hotel operations. So, so yeah, I think that's great. Are there any recommendations you would have, I guess, for hotels to kind of to leverage this and to start, I guess, incorporating like more of these AI tools into their business and using them to enhance their not just, you know, like in terms of also personal, like what we were speaking about earlier in terms of responding to the very diverse, you know, guest demands. And there's like, you know, to your point of there being so much data out there, like how can, you know, hotels like leverage these tools to make sure that they're getting these actions like in real time and that they're acting on it, and growing their business, and, you know, everything's working
Yeah.
seamlessly.
Yeah, I mean, look, every job in a hotel will use an AI engine or some form of AI engine. We can mention a few, right? Whether that's somebody in marketing that edits picture content before it is submitted and uploaded, right? Because your tools in post-production are just so much more superior. You can remove things, you can add things, you can change things. It's amazing what you can create. Sometimes I worry about copyrights in this context, but you know, these are tools to create and build amazing content. In guest experience, right? Like we have the ability to answer questions faster, to decipher operational questions quicker than ever before, and provide this information to agents or service providers. We use an AI engine just to answer our own tickets at Cloudbeds, which is funny, but it allows our team to be much faster, right? We still want humans to vet the information. We still want humans to make sure that we're not spitting out, you know, stupid things. That's for sure. But I do think that it is an accelerator, and it will make our lives a lot faster and more efficient, and allow us to potentially do more.
Yeah. Something interesting that, because it's something I personally haven't looked into yet, although I have been, it's kind of in my head to do that, but sort of using AI applications in terms of like the travel planning as a consumer. Do you see this being like having a big scope for growth in the coming like years, and should hotels be investing in that as like channels to actually be present and be visible and reach consumers?
I think there are some projects right now happening around that space. When it was initially piloted, it promoted, unfortunately, I think it promoted an event. You can look it up. It promoted an event that didn't exist. I mean, ChatGPT was trying to do something like that. Look, sure, right? Will it happen tomorrow? I doubt that, right? I think, look, sending people to destinations that don't exist, we have to control what's out there to a certain extent, right? Like travel businesses have a responsibility to keep guests safe, and I think we have a responsibility to make sure that the internet is not the source of truth, meaning, you know, on its own, because there's a lot that can be created that is misleading, that is wrong, that is inaccurate, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that as an industry, we need to figure out a standard in order to make sure that what you can discover and what you can book and the places you can stay and the places you can travel to exist, are safe and are real. And you know, I have some concerns around this, but do I trust that an engine will do travel search fully automated tomorrow?
Yeah.
Unlikely. I'm giving it a 15% chance at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, even using, Chat GPT and things like that, I do have to double check sometimes, okay, source, link to the exact source on a study or whatever given me in terms of statistics or things like that. But I think it would be cool, like in the sense of simplifying, like from, something that I also don't particularly enjoy is the process of actually planning a trip and like, okay, what am I going to do? What's the best place to stay and so on. But if you had like something that, you can get those very specific answers to those very specific questions, and it's not, Google search results where, now there's Gemini, but having like a bunch of results and then you're having to do like a bunch of research, and like if there's something that kind of cuts that down, that would be good. But yeah, I guess we'll see how and when that happens.
I guess we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. And sort of just moving on a little bit, I guess, to like personalization also being, like a big talking point as well. What are sort of the like how do you what are some ways that hotels can actually leverage technology and I guess AI as well and stuff to create these very unique experiences for their different guests that they target, but sort of, I guess, because I know there's a lot of maybe different opinions and viewpoints on like what personalization is, what it looks like, what's good, what's not. Putting a name on an email, I think that's pretty standard now. You have to kind of, maybe move on and get more like sophisticated with the offers and things like that. So I don't know, what would be your suggestions on how hotels can leverage technology to actually deliver these very personalized experiences to the wide ranges of guests and different profiles that they target?
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, personalization starts way before we try to personalize. And this is about data cleanup or data housekeeping, right? Like we we want to create unique experiences, but what if that guest comes into our hotel 5 different ways, but it's the same guest, really, right? Like he books on booking.com, he books on my booking engine, he books on the phone, he walks into my hotel, and we're creating 4 different profiles. We've already lost. So the ability to match programmatically and combine and consolidate profiles is something that we're Cloudbeds are leveraging AI for, and we're working, in real time to create this really homogeneous guest database, right? And we can use a lot of cues around that, from phone numbers to emails to payment information, which is really exciting, that allows us to match with extreme high levels of accuracy, right? Now, that's step 1, in my opinion, right? Before you even do personalization, it's like, Melissa Rodriguez staying at my hotel is the same Melissa Rodriguez that stayed 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Right? That's step 1. Step 2, oh, I remember she really liked this and she really liked this and she stayed this. But now I have the confidence that by me reintroducing or offering that upsell experience or that experience again, I have the confidence that I actually should do this because I know it's her.
Yeah.
So if you solve for number 1, which is this data accuracy problem that we've all faced, right? The question that you must have heard at least 2 or 3 times in your travel career: have you stayed with us before?
Yeah.
Right? That question, hopefully we can get rid of.
Yeah.
Number 1. And number 2, whether you then get experiences that create a personalized and friendly is almost secondary. It's almost secondary. The sheer fact that I selected your property is because I like your property for the second time, for the third time, for the 4th time. There's something that you have at your hotel that makes me come back to you every time. For me, in my opinion, as traveler, and I do 50 trips a year, which is scary, it's almost more important to be recognized as a return guest than getting that extra pillow. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I guess it shows you're paying attention to your guests and to your consumer, and that, like, if you go to, like, I guess the essence of what hospitality is, that in principle should be the way that things are. Not to sound like, ooh, super entitled, but yeah, kind of.
For me, I mean, the ultimate sort of like welcome back, right, would make me feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
Sounds stupid. Or it's great to have you back with us. That would make me feel really, really special. And if we can accomplish that, that's awesome, right? Yeah. I'm already sold because I chose you again. I'm already happy that I can go back, right, to this property because it was a great stay. It has a fantastic mattress. I love the water pressure. Whatever it is that I liked, I'm already sold. But being recognized as a repeat customer, I think goes a long way.
Yeah. And having everyone, I guess, having the technology and all that information as well, like centralized between the different, like, departments and stuff, to also know, like, exactly how the different departments across the hotels are having an impact as well. And it could just be, you know, little things and little touches as well that
don't be creepy. Don't be creepy. Here's an example of creepiness. I came back to a restaurant 6 months after I was there previously. And it's a great restaurant. I love the restaurant. It's a fantastic place in Dallas. And the first time I came there, I was with friends. The second time I came there on a business dinner, right? I was entertaining that evening. And the waiter mentioned to me the wines that I had the last time. And I was like, no, that's creepy. That's creepy. And it made me look like an alcoholic. I mean, I don't know. He's like, oh, you had this Chardonnay and you had this Pinot Noir the last time we were. Do you want to have that again?
How did you remember that? Was it on their? Did they have a system for that? Or?
They had a system for that. They had a system for that. I don't mean to promote any specific system, but my point being, you know, this was a setting where I was conducting business.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It was a very different occasion.
Yeah.
And I look like somebody that enjoys a lot of wine. While that is absolutely accurate, I do enjoy a glass of wine. It's not how I wanted the meeting to start. It made for, you know, a cringy moment. And yeah, anyway, moving on. Don't be creepy.
Yeah, don't be creepy and don't be irrelevant either, or a nuisance. Like, I think also sometimes that's where, like, companies kind of miss the mark. It's like you go somewhere and then you get an email afterwards, you know, recommending something that's not, you know, I don't know, like you've been to Madrid, for example, and then you get an email in Spanish, you know, or something afterwards. And it's like, well, I don't speak even the language. So, yeah, it's, I guess, something that, you know, work in progress and fine tuning and to get that balance right.
Sure.
Yeah, so we're actually, we've gone a bit over time, but thank you. Really appreciated having you on for the conversation, and learned quite a few new things, which I'm sure our listeners will as well. But just before we close, I just wanted to sort of get your input on, like, what you're looking forward to the most, either on a personal level, professional level, or for the industry overall in the coming times, and why.
That is a great question. I'm looking forward to, I guess, my vacation next week. That is very short term. I'm spending a week with my family at a resort, which I will do very little except play tennis in the morning, have lunch, and then probably swim the rest of the day, etc. So 1 week of recharging is really important for me, and I'm looking forward to that on a more personal level. what excites me in my role the most, and this is more work related and specific to the industry, I'm excited for how much the industry is right now ready to collaborate and work together. And this is unprecedented, if you will, right? I think there's a sense of, hey, we should work better and closer together in order to, accomplish something. I mean, this conversation is a great example, right? Like Cloudbeds and Guestcentric, we're working on an integration. We'll launch a partnership very soon. And for me, while the industry, at least on a technical level, has for a long time tried to compete and try to be everything to their customers, the sense of, hey, we need to collaborate and work together to move this industry forward is something that excites me tremendously. And it's something that will go into 25, 26 and beyond. And what it will do, I think, in my opinion, it will make innovation and technology more accessible to guests and hoteliers around the world, and I think that'll move our industry forward, right? So this is what excites me, the motivation and the level of collaboration that I see across the industry at this moment in time.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, with your last point, and just I guess also making the whole ecosystem kind of come together more seamlessly. Definitely a good trajectory or a good direction to go on. Cool. Well, thanks again very much. Really appreciated your time, and it was really great to meet you and to talk to you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for having me.